Welcome to Build a Baby, where anyone who wants a baby can build one.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maeve Roche.
And I'm Kim Headley. Welcome to Life on Film, a presentation of the National March for Life in Canada. Tonight's feature is the second episode of Choice42's Exposed series, titled Build a Baby. We have the great pleasure of interviewing Laura Klassen of Choice42. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today. But before we jump into the interview, let's roll the clip.
Welcome to Build a Baby, where anyone who wants a baby can build one. Something broken? Missing an ingredient or two? In our state-of-the-art facility, using state-of-the-art technology, we can build your state-of-the-art baby. Starting with the swimmers. If you've got a sperm producer, you'll be quite comfortable in our semen collection room, where you'll find everything you need to perform the task at hand. No sperm producer? No problem. Build your baby with our extensive donor sperm bank, where all our donors meet the highest human standards. Now, on to the eggs. As with the sperm, if you're missing an egg carrier, you'll have full access to our egg donation bank, all gathered from top specimens. But if you do have an egg carrier, we'll pump that sucker full of hormones, so you can get as many eggs as possible in the shortest amount of time. And then the true magic begins. Building a baby in a petri dish. Truly a miracle. All embryos will be graded, and we'll discard any defective or genetically imperfect babies before you even know it. Building a baby shouldn't make you feel guilty. Congratulations! You're the proud parents of multiple embryos. Now all that's left is the womb. Are you a womb carrier? Get ready to party. No womb? No worries. Our womb rental managers will find the perfect match for your baby building. At long last, the day has come. Embryo transfer day. Cross your fingers that an embryo will stick, and you'll get that one perfect baby. Or two, or three, or 8. Not to worry, selective reduction will take care of that. Wondering what happens to your Build-A-Babies that we don't transfer? For a small fee, we'll store them in our top-of-the-line cryogenic freezers. Ready for you to try again, or discard, or donate, or give to science. A beautiful gift. But whatever happens, Build-A-Baby is happy to help you again, and again, and again, no matter the cost. Contact us and build your baby today.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed episode 2 of Choice42's Exposed series, Build a Baby. As you know, we're joined this evening with Laura Klassen, the director of Choice42. I'm sure many of you would recognize her from her famous satirical pro-life video series that's titled Just Saying. So Laura, once again, it is so wonderful to have you join us for this important discussion on the issue of in vitro fertilization, or IVF, and its proponents. So my first question for you tonight is, what motivated you to create this Exposed series? And more specifically, the latest episode that tackles the issue of IVF.
Right. Well, the whole series kind of comes out of trying to reach people, right? So we've moved into making these animations, and they've been very successful in engaging with people on different topics. So that's kind of where the whole series came. And then the episode on Exposed, I realized that even within the anti-abortion movement, you know, people didn't really understand what IVF was. People were pro-IVF because they thought IVF was pro-life. So I thought we really need to get some awareness about what IVF actually is.
Thank you so much. There still exists somewhat of a stigma around abortion. However, IVF has become so normalized, especially when entangled with the heartbreak of infertility that seems to also be on the rise. I often hear ads on the radio promoting the practice. What exactly can we do to expose the evil of IVF?
Right. Well, first of all, understand what it is. And of course, infertility is heartbreaking. It's awful. And it's very sad. And I'm very sad with people who are suffering from infertility. But IVF has been presented like this magical fix-all solution. And it's not, because it kills far, far, far more human beings than it creates. So people need to educate themselves. The goal of this episode of Exposed was just to kind of bring IVF to the forefront, so that hopefully then people would go on and look into it more. Because once you do that, if you call yourself anti-abortion or if you call yourself pro-life, you cannot support IVF because it kills human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's definitely sort of a disconnect between, the heartbreak of infertility and also, the evil of IVF, sort of downplaying it in order to, put it up on a pedestal, perceive it as like a social good. You're responding to this heartbreaking issue of infertility. So yeah, I think that's so true. And also culturally, we're sort of seeing an uptick in the commodification of women's bodies through various mediums. So things like, prostitution, pornography, surrogacy, and then now, IVF. And I also think that a central criticism that we receive as a pro-life movement, I mean, you've addressed this in one of your videos previously, is it's sort of been fabricated through the lens of Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, which sort of frames our desire to end dehumanizing practices as something that's, restricting bodily autonomy, bodily rights, and also just personal freedom. But what I think is interesting is, or what I at least find very dystopian, is the shift that we're seeing towards utilizing women's bodies as a means of, becoming like gods, becoming authors of life, and sort of sterilizing the creation of human life, and taking it away from the context of marital union. So I'm wondering what your take is on this, about, the direction we're heading in terms of sort of these like transhumanist perspectives or ideas, and also sterilizing the creation of human life. Like, what are your thoughts on the direction we're heading?
Right. Well, yeah, it is interesting with IVF because it uses people all along the way, right? Like from the start, right when you're gonna get your sperm, and the normal usual practice, the way that that's usually done, is in a room full of pornography. And if you know anything about pornography and sex trafficking and all of that, those women in a lot of cases are not treated very well. And so this is how IVF starts. It starts there. And then you go along, and even with egg donation, I'm finding out a lot of the egg donors are in other countries, and they're paid money so that they can get their eggs taken out. And they don't understand like the physical and the medical effects that that's going to have on people, because this is all new to us, right? They are coming out with studies showing that it's actually really bad to donate your eggs. It does terrible things to your own body, which makes sense. And then for the person who's going to be carrying the child, whether that is the mother or whether, once again, somebody in some way is being paid to be a surrogate, right? And that's actually not good for her body either. All the hormones that need to go into her before she's ready to do that. And like, as we know, birth is no piece of cake, right? Like this is a hard thing to do. So just using people, and then like that doesn't even touch using the human beings, where like the desires and the wants of adults seems to trump the human rights of all these tiny human beings who are killed at almost every step along the way. Like, it's unbelievable. And so essentially, parents are sacrificing many of their own children for one child, right? Or maybe two if they have twins. So it's this really weird, and so much money involved. And the fertility business is it's booming. Like it is, I think from what we've found, there's way more money involved than there is with the abortion industry. Yeah.
So even amongst pro-lifers, the topic of IVF is still so sensitive. I'm wondering what has been the overall response to this episode? And I saw that you mentioned that you had some people stop subscribing to your newsletter. So what can you do to encourage someone that is already anti-abortion to speak up against this evil as well?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I fully expected that response. Even people that I know personally, I expected them to be upset. I wasn't trying to upset people. And like I've said before, like I'm not saying that your child shouldn't be here or your child is less human because they were conceived via IVF, right? Like that is not what I'm saying. I'm glad you have your child, but the practice of IVF is evil, and people need to wake up to that. So I think, it's kind of like just taking, like, once you get your mind around abortion and once you get brave enough to actually say in public abortion is wrong, this is just the next step, like it's not that much harder. It's a little bit more awkward because I think when people have abortions, a lot of the time you wouldn't know, right? So your friends and family members, you might not know who's had an abortion, but with IVF, a lot of people tend to know because people are quite open about it, right? Like I did my IVF journey and, I'm going in for egg retrieval and stuff. Like they're posting about it. So they're very, very open about it. And they don't seem to have a clue that it's wrong at certain points. And then I think when they do find out, because you will, if you just stop and think for a second, right? Like, oh, the doctor told me that we have 8 embryos and, 4 were didn't pass the grading. So now we have 4. Like, it doesn't take a genius to realize that they've killed the other 4, right? Or donated them or whatever. So it's a little more awkward because people don't think they're doing something wrong when they start off down the IVF road. Whereas, and I think things have changed a lot. Whereas when women go to get an abortion, most of them know it's wrong at this point. Most of them do. And then they're battling with themselves or not about that. But IVF, they really think they're doing a good thing. And, creating life is a good thing. So it can be very awkward, but I think just get educated and then speak truthfully. Don't be a jerk about it, right? Like for me growing up, it was just so accepted within church, even so many of my friends were conceived through IVF and it was no big deal. And I never thought anything of it. It was just like, oh, that's what you do when you can't conceive naturally. But then when I looked into it, I was like, wait a second. So I think we're right on that brink right now, where people are starting to realize, people are questioning. I've had a lot of people message me saying, hey, we're Christians, we're considering IVF, but then now I saw that it might not be a good thing. Like, can you explain? So that's really encouraging. Yes. So yeah, sorry for that long spiel, but yeah, we need to be talking about this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you make a great point that, it's hard enough to be pro-life or to, take that leap of faith and start adopting the pro-life position, having to speak out against abortion. Like that's already such a difficult thing to do. And something that pro-lifers are presented with is, that argument, if there's a burning building, would you save the, petri dish of embryos or like the toddler that's in the building? And so we already know, we're already seeing this when it comes to the abortion pill. It's so much easier to dehumanize embryos because they don't look as human. They're not as developed, they're just seen as single-celled organisms. And so it's already so difficult for the pro-life movement to humanize these children because they're so small, because they're so young. And so with the issue of IVF, I think it's so much more accepted because it's so much easier to dehumanize those embryos because they don't have the advantage of looking like a newborn baby. They don't incite or inflict that same emotional response. So I do think that's really interesting. But I'm wondering what you think the solution might be to save or protect these millions of innocent children in freezers right now? I'm sure you don't have, an overall plan of how we can do this, but I'm wondering what your insights are on this, and also what your thoughts are on the ethicality of embryo adoption. That's often proposed as a solution to mitigate the surplus of human embryos being stored in these freezers. So what do you think the solution is to protect and save these children?
Right. Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get rid of IVF. It should be illegal. That's number one. And then moving forward, yeah, we've got so many human beings frozen in freezers. And so it's interesting, the whole embryo adoption thing, because I know a lot of people who are doing it right now and who have done it. And it is a very, it's like a miracle. It's really something. The thing that causes me, and I don't have the answer, but this is where my brain is at right now. I really struggle with the idea of, on the one hand, doing the embryo adoption, because you have to pay so much money back into the IVF industry to do it at this point. There's no way around it. All these snowflake adoption agencies, they're working hand in hand with the IVF clinics. So much so that even when people are getting eggs taken out and embryos created in a dish, they are encouraged to create as many embryos as possible, not just so that, they have a better chance themselves with more embryos to work with, but so that there will be many left over, so that people who are struggling can then adopt your embryos. So this is still going in this big wheel. It's not like, okay, but so then on the other hand, like, these are individuals who are frozen in freezers, right? And so, yeah, we need to be rescuing them. So in my brain, what makes sense to me right now is we need to be working really hard to make IVF illegal. Once that happens, we need to get these babies adopted out of freezers. But that's not to say that people who adopt babies out of freezers now are wrong. I'm not saying that. I can't say that. I'm not the authority on this, but it's really yucky when you start looking through the snowflake adoption agencies, embryo adoption agencies, and you see the language they're using and how it's all tied together with the IVF clinics. I don't like it. So yeah, there's no perfect answer right now, but yeah.
So there are countries like Germany that are already restricting IVF. So you can only create 3 embryos at a time. None of them can be frozen or destroyed, and all of them need to be implanted. And I believe that the sperm and egg need to come from the mother and father, but they still have a big problem with selective reduction. Do you think it's possible for IVF to be done ethically?
No, I just don't. I think we've taken it too far, right? God created a very specific way that human beings are supposed to be created. And I do think that we've gone too far. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Like, I didn't know that about Germany, that they had made those restrictions, but that's really sad to hear about the selective reduction still being there, because then it's so often that you'll have more than one embryo growing, and then they'll selectively reduce one, murder one. So that's still pretty awful.
Yeah. And something, it kind of brings it back to the previous point, this whole idea that, we're becoming like God by, taking over control when it comes to creating new human life in these like laboratories, these very like sterile environments. And with the issue of selective reduction, it's becoming more like, shopping for a baby, which was the whole purpose of Build-A-Baby, trying to present it in a way that's sort of the commodification of children. And we even saw that video recently that was out on social media of this gay couple who they're describing, their ideal child, but all of these like physical characteristics, I want my baby to be a girl, I want her to have brown hair, I want her to be artistic. So like all these things that are almost superficial, and being able to sort of create the perfect child, it's a disturbing thing. But it's so important that we expose the reality of IVF and talk about it in this context, that it is dehumanizing, that it is commodifying children and women's bodies, and it's abusive to the creation of human life, and negates the the sacredness of human creation. So, watching this video, this series, it was super eye-opening, super incredible. Even the previous episode as well. These animated videos are they're so impactful for conveying this message in a way that's, it's receptive, it's creative, but it's also very truthful. And it really tugs on your heartstrings as well, watching it, even though it's, sort of satirical in a way. But I'm wondering, what is next for the Exposed series? Are you able to tell us anything about the episodes to come and perhaps some of the outcomes that you hope to see through this project? I know you mentioned, raising more awareness, being more outspoken about this issue. But, what is next for Exposed? What are the impacts you're hoping to have?
Yeah, well, we made the videos, just to reach as many people as possible, and for people within the movement to be able to use them. So anyone is welcome to use our videos, for their presentations or in any way that really can further the cause against abortion. Next, I'm working on episode 3 right now, and I can't say what it is because it's so bad. Like and you'll know what I mean when you see it. It's just absolutely insane. It's something that I didn't know about. I didn't know starting this series that it would be so intense, actually. Like, obviously I did with abortion and the first episode being a true story. And then it got into IVF and I really had my eyes opened about IVF. I didn't know. And then this next one, it just blows everything else out of the water that we've done so far. So it's super depressing. My whole team has just been actually like struggling with working on it. I'm working hard to have that one done soon. And then, we'll see what you guys think.
Well, I'm so excited to see all the next episodes of Exposed. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us today to talk about your series, covering such important topics. So for the released episodes and future episodes, can you tell our viewers where they can tune in on their own time to watch them?
Yeah, sure. So on our Choice42 website, just choice42.com, which is choice42.com. And then on all of our social medias. So they're on our YouTube page, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're everywhere. And they haven't been removed yet, which is really cool.
That's excellent. Thank you so much again for joining us, Laura, and to all of our viewers for tuning in at home. We hope to see you all again next Life on Film screening presented by March for Life Canada. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless.